was holding my hand in the darkness, seeing ghosts down the hallway. There's a presence, bedroom shadows, cloaked and haunting me, cold hand touching me, fear overwhelming me, tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes, a breath on my neck, floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on, I wake up paralyzed. Ghostly apparition hovering over me, asking what it wants to know. I'm shaking now, it calls out my name, cloaked and haunting me, cold hand touching me, fear overwhelming me, tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes, a breath on my neck, floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on, I wake up paralyzed. Catching a reflection in the mirror of something standing in the corner of my room, watching me, observing me. Is it my imagination or insanity? A strange hum, a flash of light. I'm overcome, nothing but fright. Otherworldly beings taking me in the night. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Looking at my hand, there's something there. Inside of me, I'm feeling oh so scared. Confusion and nasty fear. It wasn't just a nightmare. So loud, so bright, hypnotizing me, figures lost in time. I'm tortured, surrounding me tonight. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Where are they taking me? They're swelling in me. Where are they taking me? Anxiety rising. Was it just in my head? Paralyzing panic. Was it just
dreaded flag, a vengeful sea. Be careful what you say. There's always someone listening. The Dutchman tossed on the sea. I swore and the devil heard me. Now we're doomed to sail the 7 seas for eternity. So yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. A sinister grin across his face said, you'll be doomed to this place. The devil heard my oath, shame of my boast. Oh, a ghostly ship from the depths, freedom from fear is the only gift of death. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. If you cast your eyes, you'll join us like those before. We're an omen of the ocean night. When you see the Flying Dutchman, it's too late for your soul. To the waters we gave now our breath. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds entombed for 3,000 years, wrapped growing in me. I have lived an eternity, suspended in darkness. Release me, release me. Wasting and running. Release me, release me. Condemned and bound, the sins of time.
All right, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner. Better late than never. I'm slammed. I was just doing a million things today, man. I just came back from being out at the ranch and feeding water in the animals, and we had to move a bunch of stuff in storage. We had to go from one storage to the house and one storage to the net. It's just from the time I woke up today, I hit the ground running. And I am in a whirlwind. I haven't stopped moving.
We just now ate like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, it just, well, I didn't eat much. I ate a little bit of my dinner, not much. I didn't get time to.
I only ate like 4 pieces of pizza, which is like nothing.
You ate 4?
I'm starving over it. Maybe 5. I don't know. I mean, like
Damn.
I'm just estimating. I just kept eating, and I'm still hungry, but we have to do the show. I'm sitting here starving to death for you people, for you, because we love you. Do you see how much we sacrifice? I'm going hungry. You see me? Look at this. Look at this skinny. Look, this hand isn't. It's like almost the same size. I'm shivering. I'm
Can't tell the
shriveling up
difference.
here.
They look the same to me.
Exactly. I'm shriveling up here, starving to death, so we can do the show because that's how much we love Paranormal Roundtable.
And you can see Anthony's.
I only ate 5 pieces of
he's
pizza.
got no jewelry on, so
instead of like 15.
he's pawned all of his jewelry to buy pizza.
Yeah. You can't eat gold. Well, actually, according to Monty Python, you can't eat gold. So I don't know, but gold doesn't. I've never tried.
Well, let me tell you something.
Pizza tastes. I'm sure pizza tastes better than gold.
Let me tell you something. They say that manna was actually monochromatic. What is it called? Monochromatic. What's it called? I got it.
Monoatomic
gold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what they say. Thank you. So we have a new member of the family today, Mellow Jack, right? Mellow Jack is the new one.
Yeah.
You wanna show Mellow Jack? We're letting people fill up the chat because we have a lot to talk about today, and it's going to be a good show. I'm telling you, we have a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Where's he at?
It's up to you. Don't worry about it. Oh, she's trying to get him out of his little cage.
Oh yeah, he hides in that bedding.
Yeah, he's so tiny. I was surprised today when she came home with him. I was like, but because of the way things are, part of our animals are going to live out at the ranch because they like it out there, and then the other animals are going to live in town. So the only thing is, it's sad because they've all grown up together, they've lived together, and they're used to each other, and we're a little bit worried that some of them may miss the others, but they like it at the ranch. But Elvira is very much a people dog. She likes the other animals, but she really wants to be around me and Nellie and Anthony. And so, we're going to have to bring her. Story, the ferret, will come with us.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Martis and Panzer, the cats, will be with us too. And we already have Leonidas the bird. He's with us. Here, let me see him. Is he trying to get loose? There we go. Look at this little baby here. Look at that. Isn't that sweet? He's a good boy.
I found him running across the street.
He's a hamster. He is a baby hamster. You're a little baby. Here you go. Take him back. He is such a gentle little dude. Sweet. We call him Mellow Jack. That's Mellow Jack. So
Get you.
Hey, lead
Get
tracker.
critter.
You. So that's our latest member of the family, another one of our little critters. And no, our house has not been destroyed by animal feces and been condemned by the city or the state or whatever. The things these people come up with. The things they come up with. It is unreal. Boy, I could tell you those people could write fiction. I'm not even joking. They could be fiction writers. They could write some serious stories. They could come up with some stuff, dude. I'm not even joking. It's unbelievable. They're missing their calling. Let's put it that way. Yeah, they could do some fiction, horror fiction, crazy stuff. You know, bushes being singed by astral projection and 50-foot tall angels fighting on, demons. And
next, our hamster is going to be breaking into their house, committing home invasions.
Home invasions. And man, holy crap, man. When you go back and you read it all, it sounds like a movie, like a fictional,
Poorly written movie.
Poorly written, but I mean, there's people that watch the Sharknado.
Hey, wait, I like
Yeah. Millie's like, I'm one of them. Am I the bad guy? No, but you are.
That's the last thing you're going to see on your Ring doorbell before he commits a home invasion on you.
We're training him now.
We're training him to break into your house.
Folks, the lizard we trained, he ran off.
Face the camera, dude. What are you doing?
Vegas.
He pulled a jack move on us. There's nothing we could do. So we had to we had
to upgrade.
Yeah. So the amazing dumb didn't
upgrade
work
to a
out.
mammal.
Now we have the amazing stupid. Amazing stupid. We're going to train this hamster to do home invasions and carjackings. Kind of like the bats with gats. Remember the bats with gats?
Yeah.
We've caught and then we have a cat with a gat.
What bats with cats? Why am I not?
You don't remember the bats with gats?
No.
Try to keep up.
I'm sorry.
You should be.
Okay,
So, anyways, folks, what we got going on tonight, shape-shifting hamster. Exactly, Katanya. It says shape-shifting hamster. There it is. You saw it here first. I'm always quarreling and fighting with people. You know that. They're not people that attack us. I'm just going out of my way to attack others. I'm going to send these animals to other channels. So while they're doing their show, they're going to be like, whoa, whoa. And then next thing you know, boom, chest bursting. Crazy.
A ferret comes through.
Ferret and hamster, lizard.
What would be scary is like a hairless guinea pig coming out of your chest.
Yeah. Thanos and Galactus.
Yeah.
They're getting big.
Yeah, but they're not hairless.
But we need to shave them.
What?
And then have them, crawl onto people. No. Debbie coughed. I'm not going to repeat. He just poo-pooed. Get over there.
Right in my hand.
Go
Look
clean it up. That's what he does.
He's
Man. He's a little that's doo-doo, baby. Mm-hmm.
Hey, man.
Hey, man.
A mini chupacabra spotty.
So let's we got a late start tonight. Sorry, and we're probably going to do we got a couple hours worth of show though. Let's get started now because I don't have time to waste, and neither do you. So if people want to come and join us, and if they're going to be running late, or maybe they're mad because we started late, I don't know. So be it. Sorry, it is what it is. I'm going to start with this. I had a guy reach out to me from Georgia. Okay, and this is a ghost story, but it was pretty creepy. You can go clean your hand if you want. Don't rub it in your hair. What are you doing? He's rubbing it on
That's how you get pepper.
He's putting it on his face.
Just go grind it up and get some
No,
pepper.
I'm just kidding. Go wash your hands.
The Native Americans did this. They're smarter than we are.
They're smarter. They made ice cream. Did you know that?
That's how they
They
do
took
the
berries and ice and crushed it together. I heard that the other day. I said, shut up. That's not ice cream. They didn't have cream.
I'm so glad you
They didn't own cattle.
Not me.
So anyways, what happened was this guy, he's from Georgia. He reaches out to me and he tells me, he says, look, man, and it wasn't like there again, he doesn't watch the show, but somebody, his wife told him, because he said, I felt like I know you. It's always on. It's always on. And so I told him, I said, that's good. That's a good thing. His name is Harvey. He's a really nice guy. I've got to know him. And he says, look, man, I own a construction business. He's 55 years old. He's not a young guy anymore. This happened to him about 10, 12 years ago. Now, that's what he said. He said 10, 12 years ago. And I didn't go, well, which one is it? I just went with it. But he said, about 10, 12 years ago, he's like, I was doing in Georgia. And he said it was outside of Athens somewhere. He didn't tell me exactly where, and I didn't ask. He just didn't have a lot of time, and he just wanted to tell me. So he got right to the basics. We didn't. He was like Vader. We can dispense with the pleasantries. I feel like I know you because my wife is obsessed with your channel. She made me do this. That's kind of how I felt.
Sabertooth hamster.
So that's kind of how I felt. Like he was just like he was going to tell me. But as he got deeper into the story, and after he was done, I shared a story with him about what happened to me when I did security, when they were disinterring, people that should be at eternal rest. I'm really leery when they do things like that. Now, what he was paid to do, he has a construction company, and he was told that he was starting to lose business, and about that time he started taking on other jobs, and he was losing some business. And he said, typically I'm not totally a superstitious guy, but I'm a little bit superstitious. And he said, I took the job. He's like, it was against my better judgment because my wife is really into the paranormal and stuff. And he was like, I just thought, maybe she's just overreacting. She's like, you shouldn't take that job. And he's like, looking back on it, I wish I had listened to her. He's like, because before this happened, I always had that ability to say, oh, well, I've never seen anything. It's never happened to me. And he said, and then after this, he's like, I can no longer do that. He's like, I'm stuck. I have to say, hey, this is real. There's no more of that. I told him same thing, with most people. They have this, the point of no return. We had Harley Owens on the show last night, and that's what Harley was talking about. Once he saw Bigfoot, he didn't believe in Bigfoot, then he saw Bigfoot. He didn't believe in Dogman. He was out in the woods, he saw Dogman. And now he believes because he's seen these and he's been out looking and gathering, evidence and things like that. So let me take that off there. Yes, donations are greatly appreciated and not expected. Thank you for posting that, Maddie. What ended up with this guy? He starts doing a job. He says, and it was right after Thanksgiving, and it stretched on. It was supposed to be 6 weeks, in about 2 months, and it was renovations in a cemetery. They were expanding the cemetery, so there was woods all around it. So they had to clear out some of the woods, knock the back fence down, and then push it back further. And it was several acres that they had purchased to make this place bigger. But they also wanted him to redo some of the tombstones. Now, some of these tombstones were huge, gigantic, like tombstones. And the people who they once belonged to their families, or they're long gone, their families weren't there to get them new headstones. And some of these, he said, went back to the 1820s. He said he thinks the oldest one was 1816, but they could barely see it. So they asked him, they said, can you, clean these off and get the green moss and everything off of them? And so he did. And so what he did was he got his crew, and he goes, and it was day after day. We were doing stuff. He said, after the first week, he's like, we were going over some of the reports one night. And it wasn't exceptionally cold or anything. He goes, but so we were kind of standing around, and we were kind of comparing notes, and people were saying that they were seeing things. Now, he said, my foreman has been with me for a long30 He said, we've been working 30 years together at that point. And he said, look, man, he's like, I don't think that it was, anything, I personally, Mm-hmm. And he's like, I had started working with doing this when I was a kid. My dad was into carpentry and everything. He's like, I had been in many houses, many buildings. And he goes, there were some places that were really creepy, and he goes, and this guy that was my foreman, he's my cousin's husband. And he's like, we grew up together, and he had been working with me since I was a teenager, since I first started doing contract work, and we had seen some things. He goes, but I was able to rationalize it And I was always able to say, well, maybe that's not what it was. He's like, he had a really creepy experience in a building one time. Now, earlier today, when we went to go do some stuff, we had to go to one of these stores to get supplies because they're doing renovations on our house. And the guy was like, hey, I need this, this, and that. And so we had to go and get the stuff for him. Well, in the middle of that parking lot, there's a building. And it is not a store. Everything around there are restaurants and stores. And there's this building there that is not labeled. It has no label on it. What this has to do, I'll tell you. It's basically, it looks like a, and it doesn't make sense that it would be in a shopping center with nothing but stores and restaurants. And so me and Tony, I showed, you've seen it, Nelly, Anthony, y'all seen it. And we were like, what is that? Well, the people from the vampire cult had told us that there are these buildings. If you go in your town, you'll see them. Since they told me that, I've started noticing it a lot more. But there was one that I had noticed years ago because we were doing security and it was one of our hits. And one of my friends is a mortgage broker. And he told me, he said, there are a lot of buildings that are vacant. And we'll get into that, right? And it kind of ties into what we're talking about now. And it's freaky. It's some freaky stuff that we kind of uncovered just by paying attention, you know? So here's what ended up happening with this guy. He's like, he goes, my cousin's husband had ended up, you know, and he's like, I call him my cousin's husband. He's my good friend. His name is Ronnie. He said Ronnie had ended up going into a building and had something really weird happen. And we got paid. The money would go into our account from some weird corporation. We never talked to the people. We never figured out who they were. So we're gonna tell Ronnie's story too. Now, I didn't talk to Ronnie. I just talked to Harvey, and Harvey told me this is what happened. But here's Harvey's story. We'll just start off with this. And this is a creepy ghost story. If you're not into ghosts and you're not into creepy spirit stuff, then change the channel. Okay? Because some people are like, I like the cryptid stuff, but I'm scared of ghosts. People will literally tell me that pretty much a lot of times. You know, I'm not going to say it just once or twice. No, there's a lot of people that are like that. They're scared of it. I don't know what that is. I'm not, so it didn't really bother me. But there are people who literally are terrified of ghosts and spirits, but they're okay with demonic werewolves.
Well, maybe it's because like they think that I can't see a ghost, but so that scares me. But I can see Dogman and Bigfoot, so it's less scary. But look, if it makes you feel any better, sometimes you can't see them either. So be afraid. Make sure you're very, very afraid and panic. Don't forget to panic.
The panic is my favorite part.
Yeah.
Hang on one second.
Make sure you have a panic attack.
Well, you know, there's a cure for that. Have you tried calming down?
Yeah, have you tried just like chilling out?
You're just like, you go to the doctor and they tell you that. They're like, just calm down.
Yeah.
You know, you're just too high strung. Just calm down.
Just take a chill pill. The next time you're in an argument with your significant other, just say that, hey, calm down. It works every time.
I would never do that.
Works every time.
I would
It
never
works like a
do
charm.
that, right, Nelly? I would never tell you that.
I'm trying to say that to everybody.
You're not married. Please shut up. You don't know. Please shut up. So ignore this man. This man has never been married.
I give good advice.
He does. Definitely. There's a guy on the bridge. He's like, just jump. The water's good.
You'll be fine.
Hi,
Guy's
BMR.
like, what?
It's just water,
It's just
dude. It's
water,
not like
dude.
it's
You're okay.
concrete.
And then you're like, oh, from that height, it is kind of like concrete.
Bryce, good luck with that.
Oh well, he just drinks this coffee. A volcano, huh? Well,
Oh.
You know, that's it.
Guess you shouldn't have listened to me.
Yeah.
Good to hear, Sage.
You know, I give bad advice. I guess you
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't know
You should have known that.
but you didn't know me from Adam. And, well, in the arms of an angel. So what happened? This guy, he says, he's like, dude, we were talking. We started comparing notes, and one of the things that kept coming up was that people were seeing some kind of black shadow but it was moving independently. It wasn't one of the people's shadows, because he said the first thing that one of the guys said was, "Oh, well, maybe it's y'all's shadow." You know, there's always some doofus there that doesn't know or believe, and they make jokes because they're honestly scared and they don't want to deal with it, so they pretend like they're brave, and it turns into a nervous, stupid laugh. You know those people, right? But anyway, he said, "Yeah, this guy kind of." He goes, "I just kind of laughed too at the time. I just thought, yeah, whatever. The guy worked for me for years." And he's like, and then later on, I thought, man, I want to slap that guy. Those the exact words. He goes, because I said, "Yeah, there's always those people." He goes, "Yeah," and it was funny at the time, and then later I was like, "Yeah, no," because he did it to me later. He was trying to rationalize it. I'm like, "That, stop, okay? I know what I saw." And so he's like, the next week, you know, about 2 weeks in, he goes, there were more people. He goes, and then I had an entire crew that their job was to spray down the headstones and make them visible. And then we had some that were completely messed up. And we had to have somebody come in. They do like rock work or stone masons or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He had to hire somebody to do it. It ended up being a bigger job. And he had to go to these people and look, it's going to cost this much, you know, to do what you want to do, you know. And he goes, and it's going to take longer than 6 weeks. He says, and this thing drug on to the middle of like January. But he said he quit going in late. And he was like, I was out of there by night after this happened. He said it was 3 days before Christmas, or 3 days after Christmas. You know, that week where nothing happens.
Yeah,
And
between
you're just kind
Christmas
of like
and New
Christmas
Year's.
and New Year's, and you're just kind of like, this is weird. It's not a lot of traffic. That's good. Are people working?
Yeah.
I don't know. Are they on vacation? What's going on?
There's not a lot happening because people are broke.
I don't take vacations. I got to keep working, but everybody else is kind of like broke and just at the house, you know, pretending like they're happy with their purchases, you know, or pretending like they're happy with the gifts they got, whatever. It's a weird period. That week is pretty chill. I kind of like that week, but it's just kind of an odd week. You know, it's not really not going on. He said, he goes, I had to work. I said, you sound like me. I don't stop. And so he had to work. And he said, you know, my guys were working. It was like a skeleton crew, no pun intended. And he said, no pun intended. It was just a skeleton crew. He's like, some of what we were doing, they were moving some of these old headstones, you know, and the bodies, they were moving them back to the very back. And he said some of it because there was some water that had gotten in there and it damaged it, and they had to fill it in. He goes, it was a pretty big job. It turned into be a pretty big job. Turned out to be. And he said, so what happened? He goes, I was there one night. Now you got to realize, you know, this was like, you know, 5-6 weeks of this now. Every week getting more reports. He said one time, I asked him, I said, did anything happen before this time you actually had this particular? He says, yeah, there was one time. He says, I was sitting in my truck and I was looking at my computer. And he said, you know, we were just trying to look and I was ordering some stuff. He's like, and I'm sitting there and I'm typing it in, whatever. And he goes, and I'm not real tech savvy. He goes, but I had to be. My wife was like, look, you're going to be in the 21st century, you know, even though this was like 10 years ago. And he says, I'm on the computer. He goes, and I hear a tapping on the window. And he goes, and I go to look. He's like, I don't see anything. He's like, and then as I'm pulling out, you know, a few minutes later, because I got kind of spooked, he's not going to lie, because I would have never have admitted to my wife this. Because she'd be like, aha, I told you, the world is haunted. And that's me, not him. But, you know, that's kind of how he made it sound like she was just waiting to tell him, you know, like, I told you there were ghosts everywhere. They're everywhere. And he's just like, he acts like, you know, she goes, we went on this trip to Florida to Kissimmee, you know, and he's like, and she was acting like there were ghosts just coming out of the walls. I said, yeah, I know, I live with a person like that. Her name is Nellie. I said, yeah, it's totally like that. But she actually does have stuff happen. And then I'm sitting there going like, Nellie is nothing. You hear, you're like, whoa, what was that? What was that? Did you throw your voice? Are you throwing your, what was that? Was that a demon? Was that
Obviously there's a Bluetooth speaker over there.
You're like, and
Not
it's behind
falling.
this wall. And there's nothing there.
And now you got to patch the wall.
And then you see the hag go behind you, but you don't actually see it. It's a scary movie. You know how it goes, right? But ended up happening, like he says, look, he goes, it's just one of them things. He goes, my wife was making me sick with this crap. He's like, and then she made me watch you. He goes, and no offense, but I mean, you know, I didn't want to see you. I was like, wow. He goes, I'd seen it twice. You're talking about a church and it was haunted. He goes, I get it. He's a funny guy. He was very straightforward.
Enough is enough.
He's like, and then I turn on the show and there you talking. He's like, and I like the funny stuff but I fall asleep during the other stuff. He goes, I don't know what the hell a good Dogman is. And I told him, I said, when you think of because this is a guy who's not into this. He's an outside looking in guy. I said, Harvey, let me ask you a question. I said, he's probably not even watching. He doesn't care.
He turns it on just in time. He's like,
yeah, this is the one time you watch it.
I made sure I came on late so he would go to sleep. He goes to bed early. So I said, Harvey, what time do you go to bed? He goes, 8 o'clock. I said, good, I'll be off, you know, or 9 o'clock my time. I said, good, I'll be on at 9. So Harvey says, he said, but his wife is listening. Hey, Wanda, how you doing? So he says, look, he goes, I know nothing against you. He's like, but I don't know what the heck a Dogman was. So I told him, I said, let me ask you a question. When you hear the word Dogman, what do you think? He goes, I don't know, like a circus freak. And he goes, when I said that, he goes, my wife said, well, that's what Josh Turner once said. And he goes, well, then why is he always talking about it? I said, because Harvey, they're real and they're everywhere. They parachute out of the sky. They probably are right behind you. He goes, don't even talk like that. He goes, I'm outside. And I said, okay. I was messing
Harvey.
with him.
Maybe I should name the hamster Harvey.
Harvey.
I like that name.
But he's a funny guy. It was fun to talk to. And we had a good laugh, dude. And we line up pretty good with a lot of stuff, you know. He was raised in the country. I was too. It's just we had a lot in common, and we talked, and you know, but it was his wife had kind of said he's an old fogey, but he's not that old. And she's like, he's been an old fogey since he was in his 20s. I said, Anthony's the president of the Old Fogies, the Young People's Fogies Association.
I don't see it that way.
I do.
I think we just have some common sense.
Yeah, I just think you've been
Call
an
an
old
apple
fogey since you were 19.
Oh.
He's like, yeah, funny, daddy kind of whatever. But you know, he was telling me, he says, you know, he goes, I will say this 110%. He goes, I know what happened to me. He goes, and I'm not running around jumping, you know, or just ghosts everywhere, you know. He called them ghost monsters. I said, that's it. Ghost monsters. What's a ghost monster? Harvey, come on. But he says, I'm not jumping around scared of everything. He goes, but I'm scared of that place. And I said, why? And he goes, well, he's like, I saw something. He's like, and I can't explain it. He goes, eventually, he goes, I had to get, you know, a Porta John out there because my guys wanted to leave to go to the corner store all the time, you know. And, you know, they come back with that malt liquor. I'm joking. He didn't say that. That's me. Modelo. They come back with the Modelo. And they're like, hi, jumping around, not doing their jobs, you know, slapping each other up with paint. You know how it goes. Mm-hmm. What did Armando say? Stabbing each other with swords.
Yeah.
You think you're like, I'm just a normal guy. You take a drink of Schlitz and you're like, yeah. Woo! Woo-hoo! I had one drink, boy, and I'm ready to go. Woo! Where's that sword? Bring me my sword so I can kill. You know what I mean? That's what they're doing. That's what they do when they drink. My favorite pills are the ones that kill. You know, that's what they're doing, man. I mean, because they drink. They drink. You drink the drink, then you smoke the smoke, and then you take the pills, and then you die and you kill.
And then you do the stabby stab.
You stabby all day.
Maybe just a little bit of stabby stab.
Next thing you know, you have one eye. You know,
a bong and a blitz.
But
I know.
A bong and a blitz. You know. If you're ever in a smoke shop, though, the first thing you do is you walk up and you say, I would like to see the bongs. Give them to me.
Where are they?
Watch what happens. Just go in there and say that. There'll be some guy behind the counter going,
you have to do that.
Oh, boy, shouldn't. They're always scratching themselves. You should have said that, man. Scammer up there.
It's called a water pipe, man.
It's a water pipe, man. You might need to leave. Look, walk outside, put on the fake mustache, come back. And then we'll smoke. Tobacco. tobacco.
Just be cool, man. Be cool.
And then you
right?
walk out. He's all like, "Yeah, man, you better leave. You bitch, can't sit me, man. I'll kill you, man." You know, that's how they are. You come back and they're like, "Hey, what's up, man? Wario?" But you know, I used to do that all the time. Walk in, I'm like, "Can I ask you a question? Where are your water pipes?" And they're like, "Water pipes? Yes, you know, bongs." I was over there, but I didn't see them. Oh, there's an entire wall of bongs. Sir, you need to leave. Why? I just want to buy a bong. Anyways, you know, the whole party's not watching. He's probably going, "What is this crap?" You sound like Clint Eastwood. Gran Torino.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's kind of like I told him that. I said, "You're kind of like, you know, Clint Eastwood." And he said, "You know, I did have some Vietnamese neighbors. I didn't like them much." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, that's more than I needed to know." He didn't say that. I'm joking. But no, it's crazy. Like, right. So he says, look, he says they're always going to the corner store. He's like, and I can't, I just like, so I got a Porta-John, right? He goes, and I had a 24-hour taco truck. I'm joking. They didn't do that. But he did have a taco truck that would come by and they would give him lunch and stuff. So they didn't have to leave, right? Smart. That's smart because now you got them working and you don't have to, they can just eat and they just go back to work or whatever. The crews do what they got to do. And I've been on lots of job sites. That's how it goes. And
Lolo's comment.
I went to a gas station in Arkansas, saw those things. I knew they were the thought mess with the cash. I said, "Oh, what's some beautiful lamps?" He just looked at me. Okay. So, yeah, he said, he goes, one night, though, he goes, after all the weird stories, and he's like, and maybe this contributed to a little bit of my fear. He goes, because I did. He's like, one time I was walking toward the back of the property, you know, and I was with my guy, Ronnie. He goes, you know, he works my right-hand guy, but works for me. And we both see this, what looks like a shadow kind of go like this down. You know, like he's like, it was kneeling and went behind a headstone. He's like, and we ran around the other side and we looked and we both looked at each other and we're like, what the heck was that? I said, it was a ghost monster, obviously. And he's like, yeah, well, I was still skeptical. I wouldn't, you know. He's like, and then the night came. He's like, and everybody left early. He goes, and people were barely working that week. There were people that had taken vacation. They wanted to do this, wanted to do that. It was Christmas time. It was 2-3 days after Christmas. Well, 3 days after Christmas. He said it was December 28th. And he said, I'm finishing up. He goes, and then everybody slowly left, trickled out, you know, and he goes, and I was still there doing a little bit of work. And he goes, I look around, he goes, and I'm by myself. I'd been there by myself a few times. He's like, but I'm looking around and I'm like, everybody's gone. He's like, and so I decided, you know what? I'll stay for another hour, try to finish up what I'm doing, and then I'll leave. He's like, and then he's like, I hear this noise, which sounds like, he goes, the wind blew, and it was chilly. It was cold. He's like, and I had a jacket on, you know, and he goes, but I wasn't wearing earmuffs. He made it a point to tell me that. And I said, well, I didn't think you would be. It was Georgia. But he said, he goes, I could hear clearly. He's like, and I heard this noise and it sounded like something said my name. And he's like, I have a nickname. Right? And he's like, I've had this nickname for a long time. And he's like, and it said my nickname. And he's like, and that's when he goes, I thought, no way. There's no way. And he's like, and since I was a kid, my dad called me Sporty. He's like, and I heard it. I heard Sporty. He's like, and I thought, it sounded kind of like my dad. He's like, that was disturbing. And he goes, and it was aggravating because he goes, I knew in my heart that was not my dad. He's like, and so I go finish up. I put my tools up at that point. I said, it's time to leave. He goes, but I had to use the restroom really bad. He's like, and our Porta-John, you know, there's not a whole bunch of us. It's pretty clean for the most part. He goes, so I go in there. He goes, and I ordered one of those big, nice ones, you know, kind you can, you walk in and you can actually, move around in it. He's like, I had a really big, nice one. He goes, so I go in there and I go to do my business. He goes, and I'm sitting down and he's like, and I hear this noise around the outside of the Porta-John walking around. And I'm like, there's a person out there. He goes, it was a person. Like you could hear the footfall, the footsteps. He's like, and it's going around and around the Porta-John. He's like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, hello. And he goes, and I felt really weird, He goes, and then kind of violated too. You're like, I'm trying to do my private business and somebody's walking around it. He's like, now, a few years before we had come, there had been some vandalism. This place had gotten so run down that in the back of the property, there was still some of the paint and stuff on there, and they had to sand it down and get it. And he was like, we were, having to clean it up. And he's like, so I thought, oh, maybe there were some kids. He's like, one day we came in and stuff was thrown about, like moved around. And he thought, there was just these wrought iron things on this one mausoleum. And, there was some of these graves were from the Civil War. He goes, it was old stuff, and these people, it looked like somebody had not vandalized. He said they were kids who would have done a lot more. It was like somebody had just rifled through their things, but didn't take anything, which was odd. And he said, so I thought maybe this is a person that had come back and that they had decided that they were going to take something. He goes, and so I decided I needed to hurry up and get out of there because they might go to my truck. He's like, and so I stand up, I'm done with my business. He goes, and I heard the footsteps moving around, going away from the Porta-John and coming back to the Porta-Potty. He's like, and you had those little vents, on the sides of the little, he goes, I'm looking out of it and I'm looking. He goes, and I go to the other side and I'm looking. This one had 3 of them. He goes, on 3 sides. He's like, and I'm a little nervous. He's like, and I'm armed. He's like, so I yelled. I was like, I'm armed. I'm a gun owner. I have a gun. He goes, and I heard what sounded like a faint whisper, but it was weird. It was like it was coming from the distance, but I could hear it, like clearly hear that it was somebody like whispering something. And he's like, he goes, and I thought, is this somebody trying to communicate with me? And he's like, hello? He goes, and I felt so stupid. He goes, and so he goes, I called my wife. I had my phone. He's like, so I called my wife and I'm like, hey, Wanda. He goes, I'm he goes, I couldn't come up with words. Mm-hmm. He's just like, I just told her, I said, hey, what are you doing? It's kind of like what we were talking about last night. It kind of reminded me of that. I was telling Anthony, like, I'm not gonna go into any real detail, but when I was young and I was running a nightclub, there were some people that took us to witness something pretty messed up. And I didn't want to interrupt and be like, because they were disciplining their people. And I thought, this is insane how they were treating their people. Like I didn't want to look bad for these were gangsters, right? So they were like, they were Russian people, right? And that guy was like, you'll do that for your people too, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, if they get out of line, they die. That's it. They get stabbed for sure. Absolutely. And my brother's looking at me and we're like, the guy turns around like, like he's like, and then they turn back around. I'm like, yeah, dude. Whew. I would have been a lot harder on him. Like you just hit him and pushed him into the free. I would have been like, and he goes, you think I should do it? No. I'm saying if it was me, I'm just saying we're all different. We're all different. You do what you do. You do you, and I do me. Like when I get upset with them, it's stabbing all day. I'm just saying. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that's how I roll. Because I'm vicious too, dude. And then, we're driving back from Dallas and there's 4 of us. We didn't speak until Waco. We were like, And Dee was like, did that really happen? I said, yes, it did. They think we're crazy and they are insane. And, you know, we started rethinking our life decisions at that point. Maybe we shouldn't be gangsters. These people are doing stuff that I'm just saying, I wouldn't make a person eat themselves. That's crazy stuff, you know? The most I'd ever done was like get in somebody's face and yell. I was like, maybe we need to step it up. Maybe pull their hair a little bit and slap them with, you know.
Give them the Three Stooges eye poke.
Yeah. And I was like, so when these people came down to visit, because they were my boss's people, friends, like they came down to visit, I was over there yelling at people. And I said, the music is really loud. You know, and I told Harvey this joke. It was kind of a joke, but it's not. I said, I went over there by the cigarette machine and I was like, you know, but I'm not really saying anything. And I told my people, I said, look, I'm just going to pretend like I'm yelling at you. Just go the other way and just walk away like you're hurt. And they're looking at me kind of half laughing. And I'm like, oh, go along with it. I'm not, you know, I get it. You know, and I'm not really good at just improvising a lie. You know, it's like when they put me on the spot, I'm just like, yeah, man, that guy, I just had the lightest hair on fire. I mean, you know, that's what happens. That's how I roll. You know, he didn't pick up all the glasses. I was like, you know, next time it's gonna be, I'm gonna hit you. You know, they were just like, I don't know why you let these people do these things. I'm looking around like, what are they doing? What are they? Well, one of them's kind of leaning a little bit on that. Let me go. I'm gonna yell at that guy. He needs to stop that. You don't need to be holding up that wall. Go do some stuff. Because I mean, I could be mean. I could yell and get angry, but I mean, I'm not gonna do the kind of crazy things they were doing. Like they're doing some gangster shit. All right. I'm just kind of like, hey, man, you know, dock your pay. You know, that's how I rolled. You know, I wasn't trying to be like that. Now I can beat the shit out of you in a fight, but these people wanted to like kill people and shit. And I'm like, nah, I'm not into all that. I'm not doing all that, man. We're good.
A ghastly mistake.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. You know? We're just like, should we like punish people that way? Because I don't think that's a good way to.
Maybe not so much with the taking of the life.
You know,
maybe a little bit less taking.
Yeah, maybe a little bit less of the killing.
Yeah.
You know, putting in the freezer and beating. Maybe the barbecue fork. It's a little too much. That's all I'm saying. It's a little too much. But you know, he was like that. He was saying like, I didn't know what to say. And I didn't want to, he wanted to save face. He wanted to tell his wife, like, look, I'm scared to death. I just took a poop. I probably didn't even wipe. I don't know if he did. I didn't ask. I didn't. He said he was like in a hurry. So I don't know. Harvey, I'm joking. I don't know.
No time for wiping.
No time for that shit. No pun intended. Pun intended. Whatever. It doesn't matter. So Harvey goes, dude, I was scared. He's like, there was somebody walking around the Porta-Potty. Right. And yes, yellow azul. It's gross. It is. It's very gross. So he says, you know, he's like, dude, I called my wife. And she's like, what do you what do you want me to do? You want me to come over there? Because that's what my wife would have done. I said, oh, that's what my wife would have done too. She's like, I'll come get you. He goes, no, I don't need you to come get me. I'm fine. I just want to see how are you? You know, like, you know. And she's like, honey, you sound very distraught. And he goes, I am. She goes, why? And he goes, because I heard something walking around the Porta-Potty, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm scared. He goes, I just told her flat out. And she goes, oh my gosh. She's like, you're in a cemetery. She's like, honey, that's a spirit. Okay. She's like, if you don't feel comfortable communicating, she started going into this elaborate stuff. And this dude's like, I don't want to be coached on how to talk to a spirit, you know. He's like, I don't need a Ouija board. You know, it's whatever. And so he said that, you know, he got out of the Porta-Potty. He goes, I walked out. He goes, and I'm not joking. He goes, I have my gun out and I don't know what I was going to do with it. He goes, I'm thinking there's nobody out here, you know. What am I going to do with this? You know, what is this going to do? So he walks around the Porta-Potty, doesn't see anything. He's like, and then he goes, and then I see it. I said, you see it? He says, I see it. He's like, it's behind this really big headstone, really tall, about 5 foot headstone with like a point. He's like, and it's just standing there. He's like, and it wasn't a ghost. All joking aside, he goes, it wasn't a ghost monster. It wasn't from Pac-Man. He goes, it was something. He's like, and then it moved behind the headstone. He goes, and I ran and I got in my truck. He's like, my beat up work truck. He's like, Ram tough. He goes, I hope it is, because it needs to get me the hell out of here. He goes to back up. He goes, and this thing comes out and starts walking, or as he said, kind of floating. He couldn't see it walking, but it was coming very quickly for him, coming right up to his truck. And he said, when it got about 10, 15, hold on. It was buffering. He said, when it got to about 15 feet, I think he said 15, 20 feet away, he started to panic. And then it got about 10 feet away. And then it was closer until it was right up on him. And he said, dude, I saw this thing. And he says, I pulled out. I almost got hit by a vehicle that was going down the road, a little 2-lane road. He goes, and I hauled ass out of there. He goes, I looked back, I could still see it. He's like, and then as I'm looking back, I see it like a swirling spiral, whatever. The lower body looked like it was a spiral. The upper body was just straight up and down like a cloak. He goes, and the head. He's like, it looked, he goes, I couldn't tell if it was like the head of a ram. He's like, or because it looked like a skull, like a ram skull, you know?
Without the skin and stuff? Like the skull?
Yeah. He said, yeah, without any flesh. He's like, but he goes, there was something underneath it, which could have been the face of this being. There was something on its head, maybe, or maybe, he goes, I don't know. He said he had hunted bighorn sheep years before, like up in Colorado or something. And he said that it literally had those horns because I'd seen the skull. And he's like, and that's what this looked like. He goes, and it was terrifying. He goes, I didn't go back the next day. I called off everybody from work. I said, don't worry about going in. He's like, I didn't want to send them to do something I wouldn't do myself. I said, yeah, you're like me.
Oh, like Vasquez Mouse said, like a ghostwriter?
I didn't ask about Ghost Rider. But yeah, it was definitely a skull. And he said that he went back a few days later. Finally, his guys had been back for a couple of days. And it was like January 2nd. And he hadn't set foot on the site since then. And he said he goes back and told everybody he had been ill. And he's like, I didn't like lying, but he, you know. So he went back and he says, I was there. And he goes, and one of my people came up to me, and this guy, he goes, I can only say that he was like somebody who was sort of borderline psychic. He's like, or maybe he was just psychic. He's like, but he came up to me and he says, you know, I had a dream about this place. He's like, are you okay? And he says, how do you know, like, because he's like, I could tell. He said, are you okay? I think, something's wrong. He goes, how do you know? He says, well, I had a dream about this place and you were in it. He's like, this guy, the guy that was telling him this, his name was Miguel. And he said, he started telling him, he says, dude, there was this being here. He's like, there's something here. There's spirits here. He goes, but there's a demon that is here. And it's like feeding on these spirits.
Oh, that's sad and scary.
And he said, it looks like it has a blue face, but it has like this horns on its head. And he's like, he stops and he goes, and he started describing it, but it was a little different than what he saw. Of course, he saw it in a dream. And I told him, I said, one time when I was doing a bodyguard job for this woman who was being stalked by her ex-husband, who was a complete psycho, he tried to break into the back door while I was there, me and Squid. And I was downstairs and I was dreaming about this. And I had weird dreams in that house. And it was a new build house. It was only 2 years old. And I was dreaming about it. There were these blue beings with horns that were doing this weird ritualistic dance. And they were inside this enclosure with razor wire, and there were guards in the towers and stuff. I don't know what it was. It was weird. But I told him about what I saw. And he said, that sounds kind of like it, like what it looked like to this guy. And so that was Harvey's story. And I told him, I said, was there anything else? And that's when he told me Ronnie's story. And then that gets into our other thing. So a few years after this particular incident, Ronnie was teasing him. He was kind of teasing him like, oh, yeah, you know, you had this, whatever. He's like, Ronnie had actually witnessed one of these spirits, if it wasn't the same one. Hold on one second, folks. So Ronnie had actually witnessed that spirit with him. So when he kind of teased him, they rode together to work sometimes because they lived on the same street. Well, one street over. They lived in the same neighborhood. And he said, he goes, why are you teasing me? He goes, you saw the same thing I did. He goes, I didn't see that. I just saw a shadow. He said, in a few years go, well, not a few years, I'm sorry, a few months go by. He goes, and we got this job. And these people were good payers. Every 2 weeks, they deposited money directly into our business account. And he was like thinking, man, this is, these people are good payers. And the corporation, this was some, you know, name. I'm not even going to get into it. And he said that they never spoke to a person. It was through an email and they just paid us. And he said the building was this building in Georgia. I mean, in Atlanta, Georgia. He said, and we ended up staying in Atlanta for a while because we would get done and we had this hotel that we stayed at. There was 6 of us. There were the main people. And then we had a couple other crews that would come, and the job was to gut this building. And he said, this building had been there for a long time. Now get this. This is what's really creepy. And this was the original thing that his wife wanted him to talk to me about because she was all into the vampire cult thing, not her being in it, but the stories. And she says, I think my cousin has had an encounter with these things. And then that's when her husband, she talked him into telling me his story. And then when I heard his story, I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I never talked to this guy, but I did talk to this Harvey and Wanda about this guy's story. And so his name is Ronnie. He was there one night working late on like the second or third week. He couldn't remember which, Harvey. And he goes, I just remember going in the next day and he wasn't there and he didn't answer the phone. And so I went back to the hotel and I had to talk him into going to work. And Ronnie says, look, and he said, dude, he had quit smoking cigarettes for 11 years. And he's sitting there smoking nervously out on the patio. And he said it was hot as hell. It was like June in Atlanta, muggy. Have you ever been to Georgia? Yeah. And he says, and I have, and it's very, very humid. And he said, dude, he goes, we're out there in this heat, and I said, dude, how can you, it's hot. Let's go inside. He goes, no, I want to smoke another cigarette. He's chain smoking. And he says, Ronnie, you don't look good. What's going on? He says, man, he's like, you remember when we first started this job and there was like this homeless lady that was there? He's like, you remember how she was babbling and all this? He's like, yeah, I remember. He goes, do you remember what she said to us? He goes, no, I honestly don't. No, don't remember. He said, you remember how she said that this place was run by vampires? And he's like, I don't remember that. He goes, I remember Jose saying that he heard her say that. And Jerry, one of the guys that works with another guy, and he was an African-American guy from Louisiana who had some stuff to say about it. Because Jerry was like, they're real. Vampires are real. He was from New Orleans. So, and he ended up living in like Slidell or something. But he said, he goes, they're real. And that homeless lady, and then there was another homeless person that came up there to grab something that they had left there. And they said that place had been used by a group of people that they called vampires, and that they would meet there and that they would take people in there and then the people wouldn't come out standing up. This is what they told them. And Ronnie remembers this. And see, Harvey was trying to say, well, somebody tells you that. and then you take it to heart, and then you think, and he goes, "Oh yeah, really? Because that's what I said to you about you heard somebody talking about this ghost thing you saw, and now you see." He says the same thing, and he goes, "Well, yeah, but," he goes, "I saw a spirit. I've never seen a vampire," and that's when Ronnie tells him. He says, "I have." He goes, "I did," and he's like, "Okay." He goes, "And I don't smoke cigarettes." He goes, "I dip snuff." He goes, "But I said, hand me a cigarette." And so Harvey's like, "I smoked a Marlboro Red. First time I'd smoked cigarettes, since I was a kid." But, he goes, "I dip snuff," He goes, "So I had some nicotine with him. I went and got some coffee, and I sat down, and I said, 'Okay, tell me what you saw.'" He said, "When I came in to work early," he goes, "this guy always comes in an hour before me." He's like, "He's a really good right-hand guy." He's like, "The only problem with him, he likes to take off every vacation." He's like, St. Smithens Day, St. Patrick's Day, whatever. He's like, he takes out Valentine, whatever. He goes, "But when he's there and he's working, he's good." And he goes in early and he'll work straight through. They said the month of August, no holidays, he works straight through. Nobody does that. It's too hot. But he does. And I asked him, because I said, "Well, why if he's always taking every holiday off?" Well, he goes, "Because he works his ass off when he's there, and he and if it's not a holiday, he doesn't, and he works on Saturdays." He said, "So it was a Saturday." He goes, "And typically on a Saturday, I come in 2 hours after him." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, because I come in about 6:30 in the morning." I said, "God." I said, "He's coming in at 4:30 in the morning?" He said, "Yep." He said, "So that morning you came in a little bit earlier." So it was about 4 o'clock. So the people that were there, they weren't expecting to be seen. So he goes in there and he sees this guy. He's kind of a swarthy skinned guy. He's like, and he thought he was laying down. And as he walked up, he said that this guy was on top of somebody. And he thought, "Oh no, these people are doing the deed. This is not good." He goes, and then he goes, "This person had his head down." He goes, and he lifted his head up. He goes, and there was blood all over his mouth. He's like, and his eyes were white. Like there was nothing there. He's like, and then the guy started hissing. And this gives me the chills. He says that this dude like crawled sideways off of this person that he was on, and his arms were turned at a weird angle, and he began crawling toward him real fast like a spider. He goes, and he looked down, he goes, and it was this what looked like a homeless woman. And he says that he goes, he's armed, and he's fumbling for he has a 38 special, and he pulls it out, and he's like, 38 special, I don't want to have to shoot, You know how it goes, right? 38 special, I don't want to have to shoot. I ain't no young, raw, fresh recruit. Steel-toed boots, black khaki suit. Equipped. Yeah, I'm just joking.
I'm glad you broke that up.
A real quick look and nobody's home. Now I'm on my own. Just joking. I guess you're not on your own because you have something crawling towards you.
Oh my God.
So he pulls out his 38 and he gets ready to fire on this thing, and it goes up the wall and then just kind of slides and then stands upright like a man. He's like, and the weird thing was his eyes were normal now and the blood was gone, and he was just standing there, and he goes, "You shouldn't be here." And he's like stunned at what he just witnessed, at what he saw. He goes, "We're working here. You shouldn't be here." And he goes, "You don't belong here." And he says, "Leave." And he says, "Okay." So he did. He put his gun away because this guy wasn't speaking. He was going into his mind. But he was saying words in his mind. Sometimes mind speak there's different ways I've heard it. Not me heard it, but other people have told me. And it can be like images or like you just naturally know, but this guy was saying words into his mind. And so he puts his gun away and he walks backwards away from this guy because I never took my eyes off of this son of a bitch. He goes, he's like, I looked down and I'm thinking, what about her? He's like, he goes, I go downstairs. He goes, and this thing was following me and kind of making this hissing noise. And he said he was telling him, don't you call the police. And he's like, if you call the police, he basically told him he was going to be killed. He's like, I'll kill you and your whole crew. When he gets down to his truck, this dude, or whatever it is, goes right up to the truck, and he's still talking to him. And he says, let me tell you something else. He goes, my people sign your check. He goes, at that point, I drove out. He's like, and he's telling Harvey now. He's like, and I'm not going back. And he says, do you think he's still there? He goes, I don't know. I don't know. He's like, but I'm not going to be seen by this thing again because I'm not going over there. He said another day goes by, and he had gone back to their hometown where they live. And he said he called him and said, hey, man, are you coming back to work? He's like, I'll come back on the next job. I'm not going there. And so he goes, we finished the job. He goes, there was no signs of anything that Ronnie had said. There was no body. There was nothing. And Ronnie, he told Ronnie, he says, if you feel compelled, then call the police. He doesn't think he ever did. He was terrified. But that's what happened to him. The guy was dressed in all black, like just a regular black t-shirt, but he had on black pants, black shoes, and the weird movement of this guy. He said, and he was pretty tall. He was about 6'4", 6'5", maybe. He was swarthy skinned. That was it. That's all he can really tell you about the guy. He said he can't remember his face to save his life. So it brought up the question. You remember the other day when we were driving around, and so here's a couple things that we were told by these people from this cult. Mm-hmm. They told us, yeah, black doesn't show bloodstains. That's right. And one of the things they told us was that there are these buildings and that nobody really notices them. And they use these buildings with no labels, no names, no anything. And he's like, they're in every city. That's what they told us. That's what Joel and Eve and Charles told us. They're in every city. He's like, if you were to drive around your town, you would see them. He goes, and now after they told us this, we started noticing it. We saw one today, me and Tony. And you know where that one's at. I already showed you that one.
Yeah, we already looked at it.
There's like stuff inside of it, but there's nobody there. There's never anybody there. And there's another one that's closer to the north of downtown, and that building's been there as long as I can remember, since I was a kid, and it's got no label, no markings, nothing. But it's kept up. It's not an abandoned building. This is something that's really bizarre to me. When you stop and you think about it, like, we had a friend of ours, like I said, he's a mortgage broker, and he told us, he's like, he worked in commercial real estate for years, still does. And he says there were buildings, and I found one off of 360. And it is, the reason we know about it is because I used to do security there, patrol around there. And that building was one of our stops. It's kind of like that building on Congress. Mm-hmm. That building has been there forever, and it's never been anything.
Yeah.
And then we were told to watch it along with the apartment complex. But I've been down here forever, and me and Dee talked about it. Scorpion said that today. He's like, I've never seen anybody, that building has never been anything. It's just always
building.
Huh?
It's a big building.
It's a big abandoned building, and now they're finally gutting it and doing something with it. But who does it belong to? So when I told my mortgage broker, he's a friend of mine, I said, hey, I gave him an address. I said, give me a hit on this building. Let me know, is it for sale? I didn't tell him at the time what I was doing. I just said, I'm just curious. All we did was walk around the building and make sure it was locked. And a couple of the guards would claim that they saw stuff moving around inside. Stuff being like they couldn't tell if it was a person or what it was. And so the reports started to kind of trickle into me, and then they went up the chain to my boss, because I was working for another company at that time, and I was a lieutenant at that company. And I didn't work the weekends. I worked at the club on the weekends. And so I don't know what was going on, but on the weekends, they claimed that they had seen people coming and going out of that building. And they had keys. And one time, one of the guards I used to work with, this guy Jermaine, he said that he saw these people all dressed in black, men and women, going into the building and then coming out. Then on his next hit, they were outside and all driving black vehicles, and they got in their vehicles and took off. And I told him, I said, that must be something they do on the weekend, because I only worked at that time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I worked at the club 3 days. And I said, I don't know. Got me. And so there are these buildings that I've seen. There's even one in my hometown. It's been there for, as long as I've ever known him as a kid. It's a nice building, but it's never been used by anything, for anything. And you're just like, this is odd. This is really odd. And there's one in the town I used to live in where my dad used to work at the power plant. Just a building. It's never been anything. It's been kept up.
I mean, I had gone into one in Taylor, when I was a teenager, and to this day, that building's maintained, and it's actually a beautiful, like, classically designed building. Used to be a bank at one point, but for as long as I've been alive, it's never been anything, but it's been maintained. And I went inside of it with my cousin, and we found like all kind of like satanic graffiti inside of it, pentagram, 666, Satan, all this crap. So yeah, and that's just like one of many buildings.
Stacy Lewis has a good comment here. Some of those buildings are empty and kept on the surface for their tunnels underground. That's creepy. That's disconcerting. Eric Barkman, I hope you're joking about that.
I'm just going to delete that.
Yeah, delete that comment. Haven't you heard? We're into Leviathan. Thong, 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 thong. Can't even. Did you delete it?
Yeah.
Looks like still there.
Oh, it's on the screen, but it's not in the chat.
Well, it showed up on the deal there. Yeah, I wondered about that too with Harvey's story. If it was something that maybe some people had done, like a satanic ritual or something that they had done at the cemetery that had summoned something and it was there. You got to watch it. But these buildings, what we're talking about, they don't have any markings or any labels on them, and they're there forever. So those buildings, they're not on the MLS as being anything. They're not for sale. They're not for rent. They're office buildings, right? The ones that I asked for the hits on to see if I could figure out what they were. They're nothing. There's nothing there. And the owners of the buildings are listed as these weird corporations that probably don't do anything. So what is it? It's a bizarre thing, but they're all over the place, and they're office buildings. There's one right there going toward our house. I've been seeing it for a long time, and it's just you can see it. It's just like an abandoned. It looks like it's abandoned building. It's not in bad shape, but there's nobody. I've seen a car parked there before, but there's not a bunch of vehicles there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an office building, obviously, but there's nothing going on with it. One of my friends that does the real estate thing, he told me something really odd the other day. He said that he had helped a friend of his get into, because we were talking about this place and if the new owner comes or whatever, because we rent this place. And it's this big building, but we might decide we want to leave into new digs, at some point, because we don't know what the new owners are going to want to do. And unless we get our makeshift studio set up, we get our garage renovated the way we want in time, we don't know about renewing a lease, or we don't know what we're going to do. So it came up and he contacted me and he says, hey, I helped a friend of mine get into a building, and he goes, and there's no tenants there. He's the only tenant in the whole building. And the building has 16 different units, right? And he's the only one there. So for about 6 months, he was the only one there. But then some people came and they started, I guess, they took over 2 of the offices right next to, across the hall, whatever. And he said, and they were being loud and he heard people screaming. He goes, and he would never see the people. He would just hear them. And there were never any vehicles outside. So what did these people do? Walk to the, what did they walk to the building and then just kind of hang out? And so I don't know the guy's name that he got the deal for, but I don't know, man. It's a weird thing. That's a good question. No one has made has said, does a human become a vampire, or are they a separate species imitating humans? I don't know. Gosh, think they're both, because I know that there are people that become vampires because we've talked to them. But there is some sort of species that's, I think, already exists separate from people.
I think maybe the species that are separate are probably the ones in charge, and the
They're
humans
the
who
higher
become
ups.
the humans who become like them are the underlings.
Somebody says, or fallen angels that pretend to be vampires, or, Rhonda, they're fallen angels, period. Demons and fallen angels, 2 different things, too. Because they drink blood. They consume the life force. Yeah, masochists, I would say that. Probably best to avoid these sketchy buildings. Yeah, no way. I was just, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I'm reading some of the comments here. If you come across these buildings, I would say probably you would be best off just not being in them. Eventually, this guy who got this office gig, whatever, he left because his office got the door got broken in, but they didn't take anything. I don't know. His files were kind of moved around, like they looked through it to see what he was doing. I guess they were just curious about him, and then they just said, "Oh well," and that was it. But who the hell wants to be around people who are yelling and acting weird and going in there late at night? Because he went in there a couple times at night to grab stuff, and he heard people. That's the only time he heard it was at night. He never heard it during the day. So that's bizarre. So switching gears here a little bit. So let's get into this other story. We've been moving stuff out of these storage units, and so it came up, that we had a few stories about these storage units. There was a guy who had a storage facility, whatever. There's several, but we're gonna focus on one, and he was down in Corpus Christi, and what happened was he had a place where people would store boats and things like that, and he said this was back in the 90s, and his dad and his uncle had the business, and then eventually his uncle passed away, and then his dad was, and then his dad passed away, not by natural causes. He had an accident, but he's like, and so he goes, I was young and I ended up, having this place, and it was pretty good. He goes, I had a decent job, but it was like kind of like a passive income. I didn't have to do a whole lot. People just paid their dues, and that was it. He's like, and for the most part, my sister and my wife kind of took care of the business of that part. And I did my job, my other job. And he was a welder. But he said, I made pretty good money. But it definitely helped. It was an extra stream of income, but it became a pain in the ass at one point because he said they had RVs there. And these people would try to do things like live in the RVs and be on the property. And he had to tell people, hey, you can't do that. You can't do that. And get this. He said one night, he goes, it was kind of out on the edge of town at that time. He's like, it's not there now. He's like, because we sold it, and then they eventually, the new people came, they had it for a while, and then they sold it. And then it ended up getting tore down and became something else as the town expanded. But he said that, it was out on the edge of town. And he said that, he goes, I had to go out there to deal with one of these people that was living in their RV. And he says, look, you want to put a boat or an RV out here? Fine. But you can't, this guy's name was Robbie. He's like, you can't do this. Right. And so he goes and he knocks on the guy's door, and the guy doesn't answer the door. And then as he's walking away, he looks back and he sees the curtain move. So he knows, how they put the curtain that closes in front of the driver and the passenger side, And he says, I see the curtain move. And I was like, dang it. He goes, so I turn around and I march back over there. He goes, and I'm like 22-year-old. I'm young, My dad had died suddenly. He's like, and this was only my 6 month, whatever, had doing this. And this person was already causing problems. He goes, so I go back over there and I knock on the door again. And I said, I know you're in there. And he goes, and I know you're staying here. You're not supposed to, we have you on camera going, coming and going. You need to be, whatever. He goes, and then as I'm leaving, I'm getting in my truck. He's like, this guy, I hear the horn honk on this thing. He goes, and I got really mad, dude. He's like, so I went and I put a notice on there, that to vacate the property. And he says, the next day I go back and they had gotten the notice because it was gone. He's like, and it was getting dark. He goes, and I go into this place. It's like a fence. It's enclosed, right? He gets out of his vehicle. Get this. He sees something move. And he goes, and for a second there, he goes, I thought it went underneath the RV. And he goes, dude, this guy, what is wrong with this guy? He's like, and then he goes, so I pull in, he's like, and I go over there, he goes, and there was a guy that had just dropped off a boat. He's like, and I was there to meet him and I help him, whatever. And the guy left. He goes, and I kept looking over at that RV and I knew there was somebody in there because I had seen a light on. He's like, and then he goes, the guy had a dog. He's like, what in the hell? He goes, and the dog was chained up outside of the RV. Right? This is weird. This is really weird. He goes, so then I walk over there. He goes, and I'm a big guy. He goes, I'm a pretty big guy, and I'm not really afraid. You know, he goes, I'm not the best fighter in the world, but I'm you know, I can handle myself. He's like, and I'm going to be honest. He goes, at that time I wasn't armed. He goes, I am now, always. He's like, but at that time I wasn't armed, you know, and there weren't as many people running around doing what they were doing like they are now. He's like, but I walk over to where this dog is at. He goes, and what I thought was a dog, and I thought it was a chain. He goes, it was something, but it wasn't a dog. He goes, as I got closer, this thing sat up. He goes, and I realized it was like a black, he goes, it looked like a blanket that had been fashioned into, like they had taken a safety pin and made it into like a cloak, you know? He goes, and I'm thinking, what in the world is this pendejo? He's a Hispanic guy, you know? And he goes, and he said, he goes, dude, he goes, there's some stupid, crazy Mexicans down here in Corpus. He goes, I know, because I'm one. He goes, and I can tell you, he goes, they get stupid down here for real. I spent some time down in Corpus. I know. I know I go down there like at least 2 or 3 times. Well, I used to go 2 or 3 times a year down there at Port Aransas. Now I go like once every couple of years. But I used to go down there pretty regularly. I got friends down there. They DJ and all kinds of stuff. And he said this what I thought was a guy. He goes, it was laying down. He goes, it stood up. He goes, and I didn't see the face. It was really dark. That corner where they had parked was very dark, and it was out away from the space. It wasn't even the space they had rented. He goes, what this guy was doing was just ridiculous. And he's like, hey, I know you got my notice. And that's when this thing stood up. And he was like, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. He goes, and I was trying to figure out what it was. He goes, and then I realized I couldn't see the face, but I heard this just growling noise coming from this person. He goes, but when this thing stepped forward, he goes, I looked down. He's like, and I saw the feet. And he goes, at that point, he goes, I knew that this wasn't a human being. He's like, the feet, where the feet should have been, looked like oversized, elongated paws. He's like, and then I saw the cloak thing, whatever it was on his head, kind of go back, and the arm came out. He goes, and this thing, whatever it was, stepped out away from the shadows. He goes, and that's when I got to look at it. It looked like a black German shepherd, or maybe like a black wolf. He goes, and I'm trying to adjust to what I'm seeing. He goes, and my mind is not letting me grasp. He's like, I am struggling with this. And he's like, let me tell you, man. He goes, to this day, and his sister is the one that turned him on to the show, which is, thank goodness. But he said, I have never seen anything like that in my life. And the year was 1999. He's like, and I was terrified. He goes, I was sitting there looking at this, and I was like dumbfounded. I couldn't believe. He's like, am I looking at a freaking werewolf? He's like, it wasn't overly large. It was about 6'3", maybe 6'4". Wasn't heavily built. Kind of tall and lanky. He goes, and then he goes, the cloak thing. He goes, it kind of shook itself, and the cloak just fell forward off of it. He's like, and then I realized it was a lot bigger than I thought it was. It didn't get any taller, but it was wide. He's like, and this thing like just kind of turned and scooted up underneath the RV. He's like, and I could see it under there. And he's like, I'm thinking I'm going to get attacked, killed, and eaten by this creature, this being, whatever it was. And thank goodness it just scooted up underneath the like it didn't want to be bothered. And he goes, and believe me, I wasn't in a hurry to bother it. He goes, I turned and I ran my ass to my truck, and I got my truck, and I was out of there. He's like, so he goes, I go outside the facility. I call the police. I told them there's a trespasser. They said the police came. We go back inside. He goes, I stayed in my truck with the window down, but I was telling him, yeah, it's over there. Go do your job. And the police were like, okay. And they go and they look. They don't see anything. They see a black dog run and jump over the fence. And he's like, they come back and they're like, well, we didn't see, they knocked on the trailer or whatever. And nobody was opening the door. And he's like, the police told him, they're like, well, it's on your property. You know, he's paying to store it here, and we can break in the door and you'll be responsible for the damages if this, you know, whatever the contract. And they did. He's like, looking back, he goes, I don't know if it was the right decision or not. He goes, but at the time, you know, it was, you know, he's like, so they went inside. He said inside was disgusting. He said there was like meat packages everywhere, raw meat, and it just stunk real bad. He's like, and in the back, I'm not even going to get too graphic, but there were animals that were in different stages of decay. There was a television that was on. It was just playing static. Back then, you know, you had the rabbit ears.
Yeah.
He's like, and I was grossed out. He goes, me and the two officers came out and we were throwing up. He goes, the smell was putrid. He goes, if you got close enough to it, you could smell it. And he's like, and it smelled like blood and urine and just gross. He said the police, when they were pursuing what they thought was a person that ran on all fours, and then they saw that it was more like a dog, they just said, well, it's a dog. But then it jumped this really high fence, this really tall 8-foot fence. They were shocked by that, but, you know, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. They said that it smelled like sulfur. They could smell it. So what did they encounter? He said that the next day he called and he had the thing removed, and they came and they took it off the property. And he sold it because they never picked it up. They have this certain amount of time, whatever. And the people that were there, they hadn't paid. So he ended up selling it. And the people who got it, he said he was at a restaurant one time, and this guy who was like kind of waved at him, and he was like, oh, didn't really know who the guy was. He says, you remember me? He goes, me and my wife bought that RV from you. And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, we're in this little fish taco place, like a little taqueria. There's some really good fish tacos down there here in Corpus. But I'm not a big fish taco guy, but, I mean, they are good in Corpus. And he said, he goes, we were there in this little taqueria. And he goes, oh, yeah, whatever happened there? He goes, dude, we could never get the smell out. He's like, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be real honest. He goes, there was like something in there. He goes, like what? He goes, I don't know, he goes, I don't want to sound crazy, but I think like a spirit or something. He goes, we tried taking it on a trip. He's like, and we were up in Maryland, where my wife is from. These people were in the military, the Navy. And he goes, and my wife was up there in Maryland, and she was in the military. And we were getting her stuff. She was getting out, you know, whatever. And he goes, and that's how we met, you know. And he's like, we went up there and we, you know, and she still had a place up there. And he said, when we stayed in the RV, at least 3 times on that trip, we woke up, we saw this thing standing there looking at us. They said, and it looked like a black dog or a wolf on its hind legs. Yeah. And so he was just like, and so he's like, you ever heard of stuff like, of course they always ask me that. I was like, yeah, I've heard of stuff like that. You know, they always, you know, like, have you heard of anything like this? I'm like, yeah, it happens. It's really, really impossible, though, to say what it is, because you really don't know. You don't know. Yeah, Legally Blonde. Somebody sent me a message today about the Gypsies. It was a curse thing. What? People send me funny stuff like all the time. Okay, it was Danielle Diva. I think her name is Borazon. She's like from Eastern Europe. She's going to be on the show on March 28th. We're booked all the way through March. It's the Gypsy death cult of the Carpathian Mountains. Weird.
Yeah.
Weird, wild stuff. I think people have a tendency to romanticize the gypsy culture because they're like, oh, like, like Willie Nelson, like a band of gypsies, we ride down the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Willie.
Shouldn't
Willie
romanticize
Nelson.
any culture.
Willie Nelson, dude. The guy who hates his audience.
Yeah.
He does. He really does. Did you know that? He does not like you. If you're a conservative that listens to country music, he don't like you. He's using you. I went to a concert one time. It was called The Rodeo in San Antonio. It was a venue. And I was the only guy in there not wearing boots. And he was nice to me. I ignored everybody else.
Well, it's to be expected when you smoke weed for 60 years.
I'm not joking, man. I'm going to say this. I'm not going to get into a whole thing about him, but he is not, he doesn't really care for his audience. I'm not even joking. He just uses them. I know, because he used to live here in Austin. I know people who know him, and I've, whatever. But I'm not disparaging all gypsies. I knew a Roma who was a pretty good guy. I used to be friends with him. He was one of the few that actually kind of settled down, and he worked. A lot of them don't believe in working. I'm not joking. That's the truth. I'm not even kidding. I think he's overrated too. That's just my opinion. I mean, but they do kind of like romanticize that. But the Gypsies, though, they did something. They brought from one of the Alexandrias of the port of Gutara, they actually brought a lot of information that had been collected by Alexander and his people. And he founded these port cities, and he brought a lot of information together in these libraries. They looted it, though, and they came into Europe and ended up in the New World. And they took this abilities that they had through this, I would say magic, but it's really just knowledge. And everybody thought they were magic practitioners. But in reality, they were just hoodwinking people because they knew how. Take it for what you will. So, and pikas are actually different. Those are actually European. The travelers, when you hear about these, the gypsies in Britain and in Ireland, they're actually different. They are actually what they are. People always call them gypsies. They're not. They're not the same. The gypsies in Europe are from India originally. The ones that were in Britain and in Ireland, they're not the same. There might have been a little bit of crossbreeding, but for the most part, they're actually just white people who chose to be nomadic and they didn't settle down. And so they're always talking about them gypsies. Yes, Irish gypsies are not true gypsies. And neither are the English gypsies. Now, there are some Roma gypsies there, but they're not. They don't even associate with the travelers. There's two different things. Like Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
He's not a real gypsy.
Yeah.
By the definition of the Roma, they don't look at him as a gypsy. That's why they're called travelers. They're different.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole thing there.
Yeah, you can look at them and tell that ethnically they're two different people.
Here's a weird side note. Have you ever seen the movie Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? You've seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that scene where the three Hispanic guys, they're Mexicans, and they're going into the restroom or the bathroom where the guy that's playing the ugly,
Mhm.
he's taking a bath.
Yeah.
Remember that scene? That guy, his name was Eli Wallach, right? And it was Lee Van Cleef, Eli Wallach, and Clint Eastwood, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And so Eli Wallach is in there taking a bath, right? And he's actually a Lebanese Jew, which is
Yeah.
weird, right? Nice guy. Clint Eastwood and him stayed friends for years until Eli's death. But they were filming that movie. It was a spaghetti western, and it was filmed in Italy. And there were no Mexicans in Italy. So the people that are Mexican in that movie are actually gypsies. Those guys that were standing there looking all mean and evil, whatever, and they went in, and then Eli Wallach shoots them.
Mhm.
You know, he kills them, whatever. Those are gypsies. And so Eli Wallach played a Mexican in that movie too, and he's like, you know, he's a Jewish guy from Lebanon. It's not even like he's not even. And then the gypsies played the Mexicans. But yeah, it's so anyway. If that's the scene, if I think that's correct, it was him. I think that shot those guys. But so that's a little known fact that the Mexicans they used in those spaghetti westerns were gypsies. What is that? There's nobody there. That's weird. Ah, the thuggies from India, the death cult of Kali. That's a whole nother show, a whole nother story. Oh wait, it was British imperialism. I love British people. I just don't like their government, but I don't like any governments, so that doesn't count. But no, it wasn't just British propaganda and whatever. I know people from India and who actually do have talked about the thuggies are still around.
Well, the Agoris are just
Well,
rancid.
they're an offshoot of this. The
Mhm.
thuggies or thuggies is they're actually called the thuggies. They call it the thuggies. People don't know how to say stuff. I've watched some of these other really big channels,
Mhm.
and they'll mispronounce the hell out of stuff, man. Asswine, like that is not what it is. But I'll let you tell it. But you know, you would think that they'd try to get the terms right, especially when they have millions of followers. The thuggies were actually a cult of Kali. And they actually, it's just real. They sacrificed people. They would kill people on the roads. The numbers may have been inflated, but they killed a lot of people. They were murdering people. And it wasn't just like sporadically here and there. No, because Kali is insatiable. Shiva,
Mhm.
you know who Shiva is, right?
Yeah, God of Destruction.
Yeah, god of destruction. Shiva was Kali's consort. And so to please Kali, Kali had to take those souls and their blood to Shiva so that he could eat it and get favor. So they had to please them, and so the Thugis would kill people, and they did it on a massive scale. Eventually, I think the low end numbers were about 1,800 of them were rounded up and killed, but there might have been as many as 3,200. And then there were all these people that were their allies and whatever else that were going along with them and helping them secure these people, procure these people. So yeah, anyways, that happened in the 17 and 1800s. Britain had their hands full with trying to eradicate them. Of course, now there's revisionist history, and they're like, oh, well, they were just using that as propaganda so they could do bad things to the Indian people. No, they might have done some stuff, I don't know, that was not correct. Who doesn't, especially when you're taking over somebody's land?
Mhm.
It was wrong to be there in the first place, but the Thugis were actually a problem, and they were terrorizing that country. They really were. So make no mistake, I don't believe that's propaganda. I've done a lot of research into that because I want to know the truth, you know? So here's what we had happen. Like after this guy told me his encounter, he told me, he says, dude, I know somebody who had an encounter with something that can only be described as a duende. And I said, what happened? He goes, well, my aunt got the idea from me. He's like, to buy a storage facility, but she was down in South Texas. He's like, and she bought a storage facility. And she only ran it for about 2 years and then she was done. He was like, not even 2 years. And she was like, forget this. Somebody that she rented to came to the facility, and actually about a year in, there were problems, there were things that had happened, whatever, but everything was fine. But then these people, they came and they rented the facility. And at that point, things got weird. Really weird. They ended up being haunted by something that can only be described as an imp, a demon, something. And so that will have to wait. We are at the 2-hour mark, and I'm actually going to have to jump on with
Jason Bland.
Jason Bland, yeah, and it's almost going to be 11 o'clock, and him and Tex are expecting me. Sorry, we can only do 2 hours tonight, folks. And in fact, the show will probably be cut down to 2 hours. 3 hours is quite a bit. And, we just can't do 3 hours every time. But we'll be back on Wednesday. Okay. In fact, Tuesday will be the 1 hour episode with Monica Rollins, and then we'll come back to do a 2 hour show on a Wednesday. And we will pick up where we left off, and we'll talk about what happened to his cousin. Okay. And we'll have a few other things too. Thank you to, nobody donated. We got no donations tonight. Holy crap.
It's all right. Just make sure you hit the like button.
Well, okay, don't donate, but like and subscribe, please. And if you're so inclined, follow me over to Jason Bland's show. Thank you to everybody who showed up. Thank you, Jimmy, for that donation. Jimmy. We appreciate that. At least Jimmy likes us. And so we'll be over there. Put the link if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm going to put the link up to Jason Bland's show.
So thank you to Jimmy for donating. Thank you, Tito. We appreciate that. It's not the money, but it's kind of like, you're like, well, it kind of make you think that you're not doing your job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn, I really suck ass up here. Indeed, please like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Morgan, for that donation. Thank you, Evan, for the donation. So on Tuesday, tune in with us on Tuesday. Thank you, Under Fire. We'll be doing we'll have Monica Rollins on. It'll be the hour, it'll be the second episode, and then the next week will be the third episode. Be sure to check those out because, like I said, it's very real and raw, and she talks about some very personal things on there, and some of the things that she went through in her life. And then the next week she'll be talking about her werewolf encounter. Yeah. So just be sure and follow us, like and subscribe. We have a group now, not just a Facebook group, but we have a Facebook page that we're using now more. I guess it's been there, right? But now we're starting to use it. So go and follow us over there on the Facebook page. Be sure and join. I post a lot of stuff on there, and so does Nelly. And yeah, there's the link. Follow me over to Paranormal Soup. And we'll take the party over there to Jason Bland. All right, guys. I don't have time to do the giveaway thing, but we'll do it on Wednesday. We normally don't do it on Wednesday, but we'll do it on Wednesday, and we'll do it again Friday and Sunday, whatever. Tomorrow is I guess a holiday, right? It's a bank and mail holiday. What happened?
Oh, I just said yeah. Sorry. I probably sounded weird when I said that.
Somebody says it's like a damn collection plate at church. You can't go if you're broke. What? You don't need to do anything. Just show up and watch the show. I don't care.
Just hit the like button, Sue.
Just hit the like button.
It's the only thing that I demand.
Yeah, please give us likes and the views. Thank you to everybody who donated at the end there. We appreciate you showing up. And You know, another thing too, somebody had asked me, because I know our email fills up and everything, but we've renewed it and everything. But if you want to comment about the show, you don't have to just comment in the comment section. You can always send me an email if you have a question or anything, and if I can answer it, I will. So feel free to just email away. I don't care. If you want to know more about the show or the episodes, the best way to do it would be to follow the Patreon. Join the Patreon, because every other Monday, not this Monday, but next Monday, we'll be doing a Patreon show, and you can ask questions and we'll talk about this. So we'll talk about some of these shows, and thank you, Jordan, for that. And you can voice your opinion. You can tell me what you think, and you can ask questions. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, Sue, you're married to a werewolf. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just like get rid of you. So goodbye. Enough of that.
Being weird.
I don't even know who you are, and we don't need you. So anyway, Lolo says I go to church broke all the time. Exactly. Sometimes we get the other morons will come on and troll us. Right. And it's like, whoa, you're trolling me. Just remember, your show sucks.
But the funny part is you have to be subscribed for at least 3 days just to comment on a live stream. So thanks for the subscription.
Yeah, thanks for the views too. So anyways, go and check it out. We're going over to Jason Bland's. We're taking the party over there. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back on Tuesday. Then again on Wednesday. We'll finish up. We'll talk more about this. Then Friday we have a guest. Melvin Greathouse is going to talk about seeing reptilians and other things. And then on Sunday, we'll be doing this again. Hopefully we'll have our trick a little better, and we'll get her quicker, sooner. And we'll keep the party. It'll go like it's supposed to, instead of us being so late like we were today. All right. Thank you, folks, to everybody who donated. We love you, and we'll see you. Good night.